Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. I had some more great books I read this past week, and wanted to share a few of those with you. As you might know, I mentioned in my previous video, I've started a new job. I have a new place to record now that I can just dedicate to as a recording space. It's our library we have upstairs. It's been great having a dedicated space to books and some of our hobbies and things we like to do. Just having a room set aside for that. It's great. Just a couple books to share with you again. I believe these might all be 3 audiobooks and then 1 print book. First of all, again, not a horror book, but a thriller, not quite horror, but it was pretty intense. It was called All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. Let me tell you what this book was about. I'll give you just a part of the introduction of the story on the back of the book. It says, Elise Littlejohn seemingly has it all: an Ivy League law degree, a well-paying job as a corporate attorney in Midtown Atlanta, great friends, and a for-fun relationship with a rich, charming executive who just happens to be her white boss. But everything changes one cold January morning when Elise arrives in the executive suite and finds him dead with a gunshot to his head. Then she walks away like nothing has happened. Why? Elise has been keeping a cache of dark secrets, including a small town past and a kid brother who spent time on the other side of the law. She can't be thrust into the spotlight again. And that's essentially where this book starts off. She's a lawyer, and as a main character, again, she has flaws. She's in a relationship she shouldn't be in. Not just the interracial aspect. I mean, that's not the issue. The man she's having an affair with is married. It's her boss. You know, she's really found herself in a bit of a predicament, especially as the book says, when in the opening chapters, she finds him dead in his office from possibly an apparent suicide. But being that this is a mystery thriller novel, we know that that's not the case. This story begins to unravel as we jump back and forth, get more of Elise's backstory and the things that that happened to her in her past, those things that she's trying to hide from. It really makes for a gripping read as the mystery of her employer there, the charming executive, you know, as that mystery gets unraveled. I kind of went back and forth on this book. Like, do I like this or not? Even the character who died might have seemed like a jerk, but then about halfway through the story, something happens that really twists everything into a different perspective. And I really like that this book, that the characters aren't who they seem to be, and just the emotional punch that was, and the sudden empathy you have for the main character, and in spite of her flaws, it was so brilliantly done. I really enjoyed this read. So if you like thrillers and mysteries, this would be one I'd recommend. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. Yeah, so I gave it a 5-star review. It was good. Complex characters, a complex mystery, deftly handled by a skilled writer. She is a flawed main character, but you do end up rooting for her, and she has a growth journey in there as well. Which you always want with a story, but she is definitely not the same character she was when the story started, and her change is, I think, believable, and it's earned. So that was All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. Looks like she has about 3 other books she's written since then, all kind of looks like that same mystery thriller vibe. So I'm definitely going to try to check out some of her other writing. And then next I read a science fiction book by Connie Willis. I guess technically it's a novella, but it's Uncharted Territory. again by Connie Willis, one of my favorite science fiction writers. This was a print book, but I left it downstairs, so I don't have it to wave in front of you in front of the camera. But this was basically a science fiction Western, which I kind of like. And it is a story that I felt was a little unusual for Connie Willis and what she usually writes. It says, Finriddy and Carson are two explorers sent to, I believe it's Boot. It's spelled Boohte. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. But it's an alien planet to survey the ridges and scrub-covered hills of the planet. Back home, their adventures are followed by countless breathless fans, but the reality is far less romantic as they deal with dust, nitpicking regulations, and uncooperative aliens. Teamed with a young intern whose specialty is mating customs and a native guide of indeterminate gender, the group sets out for a previously unexplored sector of the planet. As they survey canyons and cataracts, battle dangers, and discover alien treasures, they will soon find themselves in alien territory of another kind, exploring the paths and precipices of sex and love. Now, that description makes it sound a little more saucier than the book actually is, because that kind of surprised me, because Connie Willis isn't known for her spiciness, at least not the books I've read of hers. And as I mentioned, that description makes it sound a little more spicy than it is. It's not at all. The paths, as it says, the paths and precipices of sex. I think it's more gender, that aspect of sex, than the actual physical act. Sorry for those in my audience of Victorian sensibilities. Sometimes we have to talk about grown-up stuff. Okay. But so what we have here is a science fiction novel set on a planet that has very much a Western vibe to it. So Finriddy and Carson are two explorers, as it says. They are almost famous because they publish their documentation, their adventures, and all that, and they have kind of a fan club that follow their adventures. In it, there's an alien that travels with them who, because of the regulations they have set up, he's able to find them whenever he thinks that they are violating some part of his planet. Like if they walk on a bush or a plant, if they kill an indigenous plant, he'll find them for that. They have to be careful where they land and what they do, and even how they talk with him. Otherwise, he'll find them. And it's kind of played for laughs. I'm not sure that aspect of the story has aged well, but that's something that I'll be thinking about, because I think she's definitely wanting to say something about how America explored the Old West, and we just kind of rode roughshod over the Native Americans who were already there, and their culture and things like that. And I'm not sure that part works as well today, but I don't know. I like I said, I have to think about that more. But in this also is a very interesting study on gender and expectations, and there's a few little plot twists along the way that really challenge your own assumptions of what you're reading, which I can't really say more than that without giving away spoilers. So if you're looking for a different kind of science fiction story, I'd recommend this book. It's available on Kindle. It's only like $5 on Kindle. There's an audiobook. I got the paperback version because I want to collect all of Connie Willis's books. So I've got them on my shelf. Oh yeah, she's right there. As you can see, I've got a handful of Connie Willis here. Really recommend her as a writer. So that was a fun book. If you like Firefly, that TV show, I think this has that same kind of vibe. It's the frontier of space seen through a Western lens. So, hey, this would be a fun read for you for like June on the Range, a reading event on BookTube. If you want to take it in a little different approach. It's definitely got that Western feel to it, as you can even tell from the cover. And most of the book is them on an expedition exploring an uncharted territory. And not just the uncharted territory of the terrain of the planet, but the uncharted territory of love, of gender. So that was Uncharted Territory by Connie Willis. And then next, for you could definitely chalk this one up to Horror Mayhem. I read Horns by Joe Hill. Essentially a horror book for sure. It tells a story of a young man whose girlfriend or ex-girlfriend was killed. And of course he's the suspect. And then the next day he wakes up and he has devil horns beginning to grow out of his head. Now, Joe Hill, as you might know, is the son of Stephen King. And this very much felt like a Stephen King novel, only more grotesque, if that's even possible. Now, I have not read every Stephen King book. In fact, I've only probably read about a quarter of his work. So I can't say that for sure. But this book was dark. It was disturbing. It at times was so graphic about certain things that I almost DNF'd it, just not because I wasn't enjoying it, but I just felt very uncomfortable reading this. But like the story, All Her Secrets, All Her Little Secrets, I got about 3/4 of the way through this book, and there was a little bit of a plot twist that made you feel more compassion for some of the characters. Definitely not the kind of book that's for me. I'm glad I finished it, but I probably won't be rushing back to it again anytime soon. This kept me intrigued enough in the plot to see where this was going. Along the ways, the main character, not only is he growing horns, but he's beginning to have this ability of being able to read people's thoughts. They see him and start confessing some of the most, and this is the part that really I found icky, which is a technical term, was that they would confess some of their most deepest, innermost thoughts and secrets to the main character. And some of that just felt unnecessary. Like he was going for shock value. Yeah, really gross. If you want something that just revels in its grossness, that likes to push the line on things, maybe this is the book for you to pick up. Not going to be my favorite book of the year, but it was an interesting read, to say the least. But that's all I'll say about that. But then I read a wonderful, a fascinating nonfiction book called Into the Abyss by Carol Shaben. And this tells the story of a small plane that crashed in the Canadian wilderness in, I think it was the early 1980s. And Carol Shaben is the daughter of one of the survivors of that plane crash. And it follows the life story of the 4 people who survived. One was the pilot. One was Carol's father, who was in politics. And then there was a Mountie who was transporting someone who was under arrest. So a criminal was on board, and the plane crashes. And so now they have to survive in the wilderness for just for a day or two and try to get along. I love the way that Carol wrote this book, because it was more like a nonfiction narrative kind of story. She did extensive interviews with the plane crash survivors and did a lot of research. The book also talks about how lax some of the air requirements were, the pilot requirements were, and how they were often pressured to keep flying even when they were tired and exhausted, and how the rules and regulations either weren't there or weren't followed, and how much of that did it play into the plane crash and things. So you get some of the aftermath of the story as well. I love stories of survival like this, so I found it an interesting, fascinating read. Learned a lot about air travel, about what pilots go through and what, at least at the time, they weren't trained to deal with. And I hope that things have changed since then. It's really going to make me, it did make me a little more afraid to fly than I am now already. So there's that. But with all that aside, it's just a great story, a great thrilling read. And I enjoyed that book quite a bit as well. So again, I've been really having some good reading lately. A lot of books over the last couple of weeks that have just been hitting 5-star reviews from me. And that's been a lot of fun. So those are the books I've read this week. Let me know in the comments what you've read, if any of these sound interesting to you, and we'll keep the conversation going there. And so, as always, make sure you like and subscribe. That really helps out our channel. I'm getting close to 900 subscribers now. I hope to this year hit 1,000 subscribers. We're going to really party over here when we get that. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's going to be a milestone I'm so excited to hit. So, all right, that'll be it for me today. Remember to take care and happy reading.